Ja, jetzt ist wirklich wunderschönen guten Abend. Mein Name ist Pamela Owusu-Brenja, ich bin Host hier in der Loft Stage auf der Most Wanted Music 2021. Es ist schon spät. Genau, das ist wie gesagt unsere allerletzte Session und ich freue mich besonders. Es geht um das Thema Inklusion. Wir haben heute als Gast den Experten Thorsten Hesse und eigentlich auch Aktivist, würde ich ja schon sagen. Und genau, das Thema bedeutet Inclusion, a chance for change in music. Herzlich willkommen, Thorsten. So.
Okay, English it is. Hello, welcome everybody. I didn't expect that big of a crowd that night, so thanks that you are here to speak about inclusion, namely about inclusion in respect to people with disabilities, mainly. That's what I'm going to focus on, because that's what our work is centered around. I'm from a Berlin-based charity called Handiclapped Kultur barrierefrei. Culture accessible, you could translate it. Inklusion rockt, Musik für alle, inclusion rocks, music for all. And you can already see here that there are two words in that logo or in that slang that are not the same, accessibility and inclusion. That seems to be obvious that it's not the same, but often when I'm asked to give a talk, mostly it's about accessibility. And I would bet if we would talk about accessibility, there would possibly be more people here. But for us, the main topic is inclusion, is accessibility is important to us, but it's only a tool to reach where we want to be, to have inclusive music events in our case, inclusive culture events, where everybody parties together, where everybody experiences music together, and yeah, music is a universal language, and to celebrate that's what it's about, and accessibility is only a tool to make it possible for people to get there. Before we get, there are two thoughts more before we get down to what we do. This is a study from Attitude is Everything. It's an organization in the UK that is very good and that it does a lot of things for artists and culture with people with disability. And they did a study. I'm not sure if I'm a fan, or I don't want to judge that study. I just want to point it out to you. A friend of mine loves to show this slide because this study showed in the UK that people with disability that go to events, to music events, to festivals and concerts, spend more money than the average person. And on that study was based a lot of funding in the UK industry, music industry, going into accessibility. I'm not sure if that's the way to think about it. It helped a great bit because UK is far better than, for example, Germany, doing a far better job in accessibility. So I don't want to judge this, it's just a thought, and it leads us to another thought is, what is music all about? And of course, if we talk to people who organize concerts and festivals, it's about money. It's about selling tickets, it's about selling booze and whatever, food and all the other things. But is that what's music about? Music is also about skill, the skill of the performers, and that's important to get the crowd there. Is that all that music is all about? There are many answers to this question. In the events we do, the experience is that an important component, at least, of what music is all about is, again, the joy of experiencing music together. And that means a togetherness of people with and without disabilities, but also, of course, and that's mainly what we focus on, but of course our events are open to people of all backgrounds, all abilities, all religions, all cultures, all financial statuses. I'll come back to that later. And another friend of mine always asks what's the most common discrimination there is in general, maybe also in music industry. It's about age. It's how many people, when you're an old performer that's not a star, what are your chances to get on stage, for example? Yeah. So there are a lot of different discriminations out there. I talk, and we focus mainly on people. This, by the way, this picture here is from one of our last concerts. It's a great flamenco choir that is, and I want to quote a technician before, when the ladies came, ladies of age, in their best age, someone from the technician talked to me and said, what do the old housewives want here on stage? And then they dressed in these great costumes and they sang and they danced and they performed. It was a lecture, a lesson in style and class and dignity. And the same guy came afterwards to me and said, well, this was about the best thing I ever saw here, and I'm really sorry for what I said. So this is what we want to achieve also with what we do. So having that said, I want to talk a little bit more about participation for especially people with disabilities. Why should we do it? Of course, it's the right thing to do. 10% of the German population, almost, it's 9.8 or something, have a formal accepted disability. So by law, have a pass where they can get in as a disabled person, if that makes sense. How many are really disabled? That's for everybody to judge. I have spectacles, I sometimes have mental weakness, whatever, so everybody has its own disability. But formally, by law, 10% of the German population. And there's another law, it's the UN Convention for People with Disability, and it states since 2008, it's a right, it states the right for people with disability to take part in culture, of course also music, and explicitly also as a performer on stage. How many people with disabilities do you see at festivals, at concerts, in theaters, in the cinema, as guests? And then how many do you see on stage? Yeah? It's far, far from 10%. Yeah? So there's a lot we have to do. There are a lot of people who do stuff, but it's really just scratches the surface. So it's an urgent need that we need to put this topic into the focus alongside many other important topics. And I want to show you what we do as a charity that maybe gives you an inspiration. What can you do, or friends of yours, or anybody. We organize inclusive concerts. What does that mean? We have about 4 different venues throughout Berlin where we organize 15 to 20 concerts each year. So far 300, over 300. And there's always 2 bands at least playing, one with artists with disability and one what we call a normally crazy band. And the concept is that they both bring their fans, and it mixes, and there are a lot of people there who have not been exposed to this topic, and a lot of times the bands also that play, the normally crazy bands, when we ask them, thanks for playing here for less money than you did somewhere else maybe, they said, well, we have to thank you because we learned a lot by getting the experience how other people look at music, how other people look at making music, and how a crowd totally differently experiences and celebrates artists on stage, diverse artists in all respect. So these are the concerts. Of course, Corona came, we had to cancel concerts. The question came, do we stream concerts? A lot of people said, no, we won't do that online shit. We would have been dead if we wouldn't have done it, so we started it, and it was a lesson for us. We reached people that we didn't reach before, immobile people that cannot come to our venues. So it was a great lesson, and we now do everything hybrid. And we also learned that we should reach more people with that in many homes there is no internet. In many living situations there is no internet, and we need to work with the social organizations to change that. The online party was another format. At first we had a concert with no people there and just the camera, and that was of course not nice for the artists who played music. And they wanted to see an audience, so we had the idea of putting a screen in front of the stage and having the audience on the screen. And yeah, we had a Zoom conference with 150 and another with 180 people partying together. We had different venues where people made music to make music along. And we had children showing pictures in the camera. We had old people dancing in front of the desk, so it was a real goosebump event. We also do band and dance workshops. We always do this in participation, so people come explicitly, people who have no skill so far or experience with making music or dancing. They have 4 or 5 different trainings, practices, and then they perform at our events. So everybody that is in the workshop gets also the chance to be on stage and show what he learned. And that's always a lesson that, of course, that's no high-class band or dance performance, but the energy and fun and enthusiasm that people bring on stage is thrilling. We support 2 bands directly, and that mainly go to play on other events, not our events, but that we try to place on festivals and other events to carry the thought to other locations. And we have a blog that currently it's barmusic with a .org, and it's going to change to Pink Music soon, where we introduce 50 different projects, bands, inclusive bands. We also have a radio show where we play their music. We have online discussions. And we have a conference that actually starts this Friday, so whoever has nothing to do on Friday. We have a conference, Live Music and Inclusion. It's in Pfefferberg here in Berlin. It's a 2G event, unfortunately. We have to do it, otherwise we would have had to cancel it. And we have a lot of different talks, a lot of different projects that meet around this topic. We have a concert, of course, and a party, so you're all invited. And yeah, that's some of the things we do. And now I want to talk briefly before I open it for any questions or discussions. Do what you could do, hire bands. Yeah, there are so many bands out there, and I would explicitly, and there's an argument that we can have about this, that I have a lot of times, I would encourage everybody, even in barrier, when in not accessible locations, to have artists with disability. Yeah, that's often when I talk to clubs or little stages that have a problem with accessibility. I said, why don't you book here this band? And they say, well, then they complain about accessibility. Either we do it all the way or not at all. And that's the wrong approach. That destroys getting people on stage so many times. So I encourage everybody, let people perform no matter what your accessibility in your location is. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. And there's a wide range of artists, from solo artists. This is Graffiti, a rapper here from Berlin who puts on a mega show, to big orchestras. This is a band from Munich that also has a fantastic performance. There are bands in every location in Germany, from the far north in Kiel to Stuttgart in the southeast, and all different genres. This is a punk band, Jacke wie Hose, here from Berlin, and all the way to a classical orchestra, the Orchestra Utopia, also here from Berlin. And there's everything in between, yeah? Blues, country, Schlager, you name it. Also electronic music, dance projects, DJ collectives, There's several inclusive parties that I encourage you to visit. One of them, the biggest one, is the Dynamite. It's in Lido every quarter. There's a huge party with 300 people. It's an experience. Yeah, so this was what I mainly wanted to talk about. But since I'm always asked to talk about accessibility too, if you like, I have 2 slides about tips and hints about accessibility. I'm not going to go through them. If you want to discuss this, I can talk 2 hours about it if you want. I don't think you want that now, but you can ask me about any point to go deeper if you like. One thing that I would like to say again, another thought is, when we think about accessibility, what do you think about? What's the first thing that you think about? Yeah, elevator, wheelchair. Mainly that's the first. Ramps, yes. So the accessibility of physical location. And we did a hackathon 2 years ago about the topic of accessibility for cultural events. And we had a survey around 100 people with disability and asking them, do you go to cultural events? 100% said yes, and we did go to living areas, so we didn't ask them at a concert, but 100% go to events. And we asked them, how many of you had problems at the event? And it was 52% who said yes, we experienced barriers, which I expected higher actually before the survey. And then we asked them, and many said, well, this is not everything. We experience problems before the event, and that were even more people, 67%. So I split my recommendations in 2 points, 2 slides. Things you can do before the event. If you do an event, main things: name a contact person that people can contact, a name, an email address, a phone number, an SMS. You can all have these slides if you like. I also have it in a longer version, where people can get in touch before the event and talk about their needs. Yeah, we have people that book a ticket, go to a location, and then they cannot go in because their assistant dog cannot go in. And they had no chance to talk to anyone about this first. So it's obvious, but it's often missing. Second, give information about the accessibility of your event. If you don't allow dogs, put it on, name it. Yeah? Be honest about your location. It doesn't serve anyone, if you don't have a ramp or an elevator, to say, yeah, it's great, we carry you upstairs. Well, then you would have to write down, you are invited, but we have to carry you up. Yeah. So, and main point that is often overlooked, plain language. I don't know, who has heard about the concept of leichte Sprache or plain language? Everybody? No? It's many programs, websites that we see have very complex texts, long sentence, foreign words, very high class. It's like a professor writing, so we're taught to write complicated to make it sound great. Yeah, but that's difficult for many people to understand, and it's a huge group. It's a slide later, but I tell it now. It's a huge group. It's not only about people with disability, reading, hearing, mental disability, but also for people learning German, like some are here maybe. It's easier to have an easy German sentence than a complicated German sentence. Also for seniors, that it's easier. So it's a huge group, I think, right? 12% of German population have functional illiterates. Yeah? So that's a big group there already. Yeah, so if you give information about anything you do in life on your website or in programs, try to make it simple. At least offer a simple version. Yeah? You can have your high, fancy, complicated stuff and a simple version if you like. Yeah, and then other things, obvious, strong contrasts and graphics on and offline. alternative texts for pictures. And the big topic actually also in the survey was, we didn't ask explicitly for it, is many people wrote down in free text answers, and that's always a signal that it's something urgent, said, my main problem is I don't have anyone I can go to such an event. So an assistance, a companion to go to a festival concert. There are, for example, Inklusion muss laut sein, inclusion needs to be loud. That's a charity that organizes companionship. So if you do an event, talk to them. They have a huge database of 3,500 people that throughout Germany that accompany people to the venues and go there together. So that's a big topic. Lower financial barriers, for example, hello, come in. Financial barriers, our concerts, for the reason of the assistance, our concerts start at 6, so very early in terms of nightlife, 6 o'clock at night, because that makes it easier from 6 to 8. It's much easier to get an assistance than from 10 to midnight. Yeah? And our concert costs €5. All our concerts are high deficit concerts. We couldn't do them if we wouldn't get other funds. And we give free tickets because to Kulturleben, that's another charity. They give tickets to people who cannot afford to pay anything for culture. So we give them a contingent for contingent, is that an English word? I don't know. A contingent of tickets for each concert. Yeah, so wheelmap.org is a website where you can check if the location you booked is accessible or not. Check it. And then there are a lot of things you can do at events. I won't go through them unless you would like me to do that. That's more than in the direction that you think of. We, for example, have one of our venues that lets us put people on stage is the YAM near Ostbahnhof, and they have put down these wooden access to their beach area, and also have put a ramp to make it possible for people to get on stage. The stage mostly is not accessible. Yeah. You have high accessible venues, you go there, you try to get on stage, there's no ramp, there's no elevator, a lot of times. Yeah, so there are ramps you can rent. We have one if you need one, so call us. Yeah, so yeah, a lot of other things you can do, but I think that's enough. I don't know, how am I on time? Yeah, so I would like to open it to any questions, comments, or whatever you have.
First of all, thank you so much for doing this. Check. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for doing this. Really, it's very important. I have a lot to say, actually, a lot to tell you, and I would love to contact you, to have your contact afterwards. Me, as a nystagmus person, I have nystagmus from birth. For people that doesn't know what nystagmus is, it's a genetic vision eye disease in the nerves, which makes everything pixeled, or my focus doesn't work, basically. My question to you, like I have few ones, but let's do you specialize in only handicapped people, or also people like me, actually? In the sense of the events. For example, like when it comes to awareness for organizers, if we take the example of this event that we are in, for me, it would be easier to know the names of the venues as colors, so I won't have to read them, but I would know, okay, the yellow sign is Luft, the etc., etc. So do you do things like this? Do you focus on these, I love to call challenged people, either than disabled people, but do you focus on these groups or these topics also?
Well, we don't focus on a certain group. I mean, also there's no community of disabled people. Yeah, that sometimes people ask me, what do the disabled people think about that? What a stupid question. Yeah, because there are millions of different grades and disabilities, so I wouldn't make this difference from people with this disability or another special need or a certain need that they have. So there are two different questions I think that you have there. One is about the signs and colors. That's something that we always recommend, like pictograms, to use pictograms instead of words, for example. Colors is a great idea, actually. We never have venues that are so big that we have different rooms, so we don't need to put them apart. But to use pictograms for where you have a rest area or where you have a restroom, where you have your wardrobe, and so on. So yes, we try to do that, and we don't have our own venues. We're invited to venues, and when we go there, we try to make them aware of all these different things, and they do some more than they did before, which is what we like. And yeah, I mean, as I said in the beginning, we are open to everybody. Yeah, so we would love if we wouldn't have to write inclusion or accessibility in our slogan, because that's already, we lost somehow, we gave up by saying, okay, we need to put a label on this. Yeah, why do we need this label? This is something that we discuss a lot of times. But if we look at the scene, also in Berlin is much better than, I don't know, Gießen, where I come from, or little towns, yeah, where it's Berlin's already better. But if we look at what happens in Berlin, we need this label to put an exclamation mark behind and say, hey, this is what you need to do. It's sad that we have to put a label on it, but we do have in the meantime before we get to where we want to be. Yeah, I don't know if this answers your question, but yeah, so. But yeah, you're welcome. Of course, let's change our contact details. Any other impulse questions?
Hello. So first of all, thank you so much, Thorsten, for being here. We have worked together at Pop Culture Festival, and I mean, you're also consulting festivals on to make the festivals more accessible for everybody, and especially for disabled people. I would love to know, I mean, in the past, I would say 1-2 years, we can see that we talk more about inclusion. Do you feel like that maybe in the past 1-2 years, I mean, we had Corona, so, but there's something changing also in the music industry. Do you feel like people are welcoming you to come and consult them or assist them in making their festival, their events more, more inclusive, more accessible? Do you see there's a change, or is it still a topic where most festivals don't even think about? Do you have also like big festivals, like I think where everybody, it doesn't matter if it's a small festival or a big festival, but I would say if like big festivals who also have the money to implement all this, it has a big impact to see, for example, at, I don't know, Lollapalooza, that everything is more accessible. I think this could have also like really big impact. Do you see that bigger players in the music industry are also like coming to you, are more open to, make their events more accessible?
Yeah, I think it goes in the right direction, but not fast enough. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like for example, the Most Wanted music had this year, compared to the last events, a much more accessible event, and did a lot of stuff, also in communication with us. So, and we see other festivals that explicitly focus on that topic or that do something for it. But I think some how do you call Leuchtturm, light tower projects? Yeah, there are a lot, and there are more, and it's important to have them. But go through the clubs and go through the little stages in Berlin, and you will see how few in the day-to-day events that we have, how few is happening there. So I think yes, there is good movement in certain festivals, like the ones you named. There's also Sommerblut Festival in Cologne, who does a tremendous job, as another example. But the day-to-day venues need to do more or start doing something and be brave enough to start doing some stuff. Like I said, instead of saying we want to plan that we come accessible in 2030, when the climate has already killed us. You know?
Oh wait, what would I? Yeah, do you think that maybe the state has to come more into a role where, for example, they make it mandatory that, for example, if you get fundings from the state, I mean, there are a lot of festivals who get a lot of fundings, say like you have to have this amount, or you have to have this and this and this to even receive funding, so that they have to, wie heißt es mal, berücksichtigen, like these topics also in their concepts when they get money. Because we are always like, yeah, we shouldn't have parität and all this. And of course, yeah, it would be nice if the world would be like this, that, you know, we have the same amount of women or people with different religion or backgrounds, but it's not really happening. So, you know, sometimes like maybe the state has to come in to actually make this mandatory to get help or to get fundings or, yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely everybody who's funding culture in general, not the state, but everybody, and that is happening. A lot of funds that I see and that we apply for and other musicians apply for do have an accessibility part, or do have 50% this or 50% that. I'm not particularly happy always about the 50% because that's, I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, a lot of them do think about this topic. And I think definitely everybody should, and the funding that goes, especially where should be done more, is funding that goes into venues. Yeah? There should be a certain percentage of that money that goes into accessibility, I think. Okay, yeah. Great. Thank you very much, and have a nice Most Wanted.
Ja, herzlichen Dank, Thorsten, für dein, oh, English, yes. Thank you very much, Thorsten, for your insight. Yes, it's 6:30. We are coming to an end. Loft Stage is kind of saying goodbye for you today. Yeah, Most Wanted is also coming to an end. Tomorrow we have satellite events that you can actually look up online and see if there's something that you think is interesting and you can participate. Yeah, I think the theme of this year's Most Wanted is change, which I think on this stage we have beautifully and from different perspectives targeted. We have talked about, for example, the impact of Corona or COVID-19 in Greece, or how do we find music from underrepresented communities, the impact of TikTok in the music industry, podcast, Elternzeit in der Musikindustrie. Yeah, and I hope you could all find an interesting topic for you. I think you could learn something from what we discussed here with our participants. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody who was here at Kulturbrauerei, but also, of course, online. Thank you for being with us. And if you just closed your work, please get your shoes on, come over at Kulturbrauerei and maybe have a drink. It's 3G events. You can mingle, you can network, you can listen to music. Yeah, and you can, of course, also come to our beautiful after-show party, which will take place at Kesselhaus. I say thank you again to you. I say thank you to the technical team and to everybody who made this work and come together. Yeah, I would say that's kind of for me. And thank you to the sponsors who made this happen. Really, thank you so much. Besonders Senatsverwaltung für Wirtschaft, Europa und Betriebe. Yeah, and I would say goodbye. Again, my name is Pamela Owusu-Brenia. Please Register at the platform. You can find everybody who was talking here today. Most of the attendees you can also find on the platform if they have a profile. You can contact them. You can network with them. There are so many different people that you could at some point have a discussion with or exchange. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it after almost 1.5 years not having any conferences or festivals happening. I think this is a beautiful thing that we could all come together, and hopefully it stays like this. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a nice evening. I hope you enjoyed it. See you again.